initiatives that were established through the Humanist Manifesto 1 and the Humanist Manifesto 2. And this was a group of highly influential individuals who are secularists, humanists at heart, who basically posit that there is no God. At the very best, they're agnostic, but I would say the vast majority of them feels that there is no God, that everything was started through, the atheistic evolution of Charles Darwin. And so they see man as the arbiter of all things, and they see the future hope coming from man himself. It's very Gnostic in its presentation, and it's very, in some ways, pantheistic in its presentation, too. However, that being said, these individuals have coalesced to great extent through lots of different institutions in think tanks and have made their way into positions of power and influence governmentally and internationally. They've made their ways into the UN, for example. Mm-hmm. And one of the main tenets of this is that we have too many people on the earth.
Yeah.
That we're in crisis this way. And in addition to that, not only do we have too many people, but we have too many of the wrong kind of people. Right. What people don't understand is at the heart of the population control effort is a eugenicist philosophy, that some people are more fit than others. This was at the heart of everything that Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, was about. And so we have individuals, many of whom have moved their ways into positions of power today, that want to reduce the population. Mm-hmm. And this leads us to the present discussion. If you want to reduce the population, how are you going to reduce the population? And as Henry Kissinger once made a famous statement, he said that, if you control the oil, you control a country. If you control food, you control the world. Mm-hmm. And this is at the heart, I think, of what we've seen through the UN Agenda 21. And I do believe that it is instrumental to greater degree in an initiative that was put forth by President Obama, Executive Order 13575, that snuck in at a particular time when the attention of the people was riveted towards the antics of Wiener and his promiscuous lifestyle.
Right.
And so our attention was diverted, and this executive order was initiated, and it's very closely related to the Agenda 21, which basically is a way of implementing how do I want to phrase this well? Implementing a way to gain control of the food population by gaining control of seeds.
Yeah, and well, there's a lot of stuff that you've just kind of unpacked there. I want to back up just a little bit and say for the listeners out there, you might even say to yourself as you're listening to this, well, it might not be applicable to me because, number one, I don't have an internet. I don't go on the internet. I just listen. Maybe you're going to be listening to this when it's broadcast over the radio, or maybe you're going to be listening to this just through your cell phone on the Radio Maria app. I'm not quite sure, but I just want to break out the point that Facebook had just released a study that it did after looking at all the people on Facebook and their users and the connectivity between them and all of the people around the world, and using a very fancy algorithm, which is basically a fancy way of saying using mathematics to connect to see how many degrees of separation all the people in the world are. It was discovered that less than 4, I believe it was 3.78 something, and then the number went on. So that means that according to Facebook, how they have connected all the people who have friends and all their friends who have friends and all their friends who have friends, that if you would look at Christina King, that's me, all of my friends, that through the friends that I have, within 3 to 4 of those friends, I know every single person on the planet. That there's only, you remember that there used to be a saying, I think it was 6 degrees of separation.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, 6 degrees of separation or 7 degrees, I can't remember what it's
called. Right.
Well, and, Facebook is saying no, it's actually less than that. It's about 3.75. So 3 1/4 3 3/4 people, you know every single person in the world. So if you put something on Facebook, you have a potentiality, if 3 of your friends like it, to consequently affect everybody on the whole planet. And so what Johnette is saying, I believe, Johnette, is that we really have to take a strong look at how we are utilizing even the most benign of electronical resource and technology at our disposal. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yes, I'm saying that. Yes, certainly. I think that is one of the themes, and the reality is that the world has shrunk. Electronic communications and technological communications have made it so. In addition to the ease of travel and all of these other things, which were precursors to the connectivity that we have with each other.
Right.
So what now happens in Japan directly impacts us. What happens in China directly impacts us. And this is not news to anybody who watches the news, because we hear about this kind of thing all of the time. But what we don't look at is the fact that, in addition to that, industries now are also very closely connected. And the way in which the whole flow of oil, for example, ties people together or doesn't tie people together, depending upon how that oil is being released from countries and how it's being distributed, et cetera, affects all of us. And so too now with the whole area regarding food. And there's many things that are happening in that arena that should make us sit up and take a deep breath and look at it and wonder what on earth is going on.
Well, that's one of the difficulties, though, Johnette, because the same media that's actually giving us the little to no information about what's really going on is putting their own spin on things. So it's hard to get concise information so that we can make informed decisions on what's really going on and what we can do about it, if anything.
Right. Well, I think that there's truth in that, but it's a very interesting thing because I think that if it tells us in sacred scripture that we have to have eyes to see and ears to hear.
Yes, true.
And we I do believe through the gift of faith have the capacity to begin to see the world through the eyes of God. We have to believe that to be true.
Yeah.
When we're baptized as priest, prophet, king. And one of the calls of the prophet, and those are always small p's, priest, prophet, and a small k for king. When we are baptized, we receive a prophetic gift. And what is a prophetic gift? It's not predicting the future. The prophetic gift is to be able to recognize God's movement in our lives and in the world around us. And we are called really to if you will, develop that gift. And not through any arcane means, but through a life of prayer, by closer union with God. And the more we come into union and relationship with Him, the easier it is to see where His hand is and where His hand isn't. And it's easier to see, if you will, what is the landscape of the world today in light of these eternal realities. And so we look at the landscape of the world today, and we're talking about certain aspects of it, but we also know that there are definitely agendas afoot today that are seeking to usurp some of the rights, some of the privileges that we have experienced here in the United States, and certainly some of the, if you will, rights that have been codified through our Constitution, through our Bill of Rights. And we have to be aware of that, and we have to know that this is afoot, and we can't just sit back and say, well, this isn't going to apply to me today because I don't use the internet, or I live my faith. Well, that's all very important, but we're called to be stewards of our day and time, and part of that stewardship responsibility is making a difference in the world. It's infusing the world with the very life of God and the things of God, and we all have a call to do that. So. Is it hard? Yes, it can be very difficult, but it isn't impossible. And this is part of the great reality, I think, when we look at sacred scripture. God is all about the business of revealing to His people. And, I'm not talking here about private revelation or things of that nature, but He's very clear that we need to be aware of things. He tells us in sacred scripture that
some people call it coincidence.
Oh, yeah, and you can call it coincidence. You can say that, but after a certain period of time with a certain number of coincidences, we got to begin to connect the dots and say there's a picture that's being painted here. Right. I think we're foolish if we don't do that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. So my next question would be, and this is what was particularly interesting to me as you were talking about how, okay, we have this interconnectivity, and we are like tied to even on the global arena at this point. My great grandfather was, I'm the first generation to be born in the United States.